Outreach and Engagement Unit, an extension. I welcome you. We are really thrilled that we're able to bring you a seminar with a topic selected by our advisory group of representatives and senators, both from the Republican and Democratic parties. The title today is Strengthening Michigan Family Finances, Policy Options for Weathering Tough Times. And indeed, we'll hear about tough times. I thought, as I was reading the Wall Street, more about tough times, I found this quote from Charles Darwin that I thought was very appropriate for today's session. And Charles Darwin says, "It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." And I hope that today's seminar will provide you with some of the knowledge that will help us all be more responsive to change. Our first speaker is truly a treasure to Michigan State University. He's what I call a boundary spanner because he's not only a scholar and an intellectual about economics, but he's also spent 23 years in state government. Some of us at the Academy know very little about how state government works, let alone how this building operates, and people in here making decisions and how they operate. Doug Roberts will be our first speaker. He is, I'll give you a little background about him. He has been he served as 10 years as state treasurer. And that's how I remember his name, because all of the checks were signed by Doug Roberts. And he is also the director of the Senate Fiscal Agency, deputy superintendent of the Department of Education, deputy director for the Department of Management and Budget, as well as acting director, 2 years vice president of Lockheed Martin IMS, and since 2003, we have been very lucky to have him as director for the Institute for Public Policy and Social Research. And he's a go-to person for me whenever I'm puzzled about policy issues. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Doug Roberts.
Thank you for an extraordinarily kind introduction. I fear that the introduction may be longer than my presentation. My presentation this morning is to sort of set the stage, and I entitled it, Michigan's Economy, How Bad Is It? And that sort of title just begs for some sort of cute response or some sort of good punchline. Unfortunately, there isn't. The fact of the matter is, Michigan's economy is in very poor condition at this point in time. And all I'm trying to do with a few slides is to give you some idea in terms of how an economist looks at it, but you don't need an economist to look outside and know the economy is not well. So let me just go through where we are and how long we've been in this condition, which in my opinion distinguishes the current economic downturn from others. And my background does give me the ability to speak, because I have been involved in a number of the downturns in Michigan where I've had positions where I had to pay attention to it. This one is worse, it is longer, and I'll try to show you next. All I've done here is to show you a chart, and the blue is the Michigan unemployment rate, and the red is the U.S. unemployment rate, and I've gone all the way back to 1966. And the only reason I wanted to do that, and somebody says, my goodness, that's ancient history, is to show you from 66 all the way through 09, there were only 7 years in which Michigan's unemployment rate's been below the national average. Now, some would say, well, what happened in those 7 years? You know, I'd like to point out that that went up to state treasurer, but that would be unfair. But in any event, that's not what I came. What I came to talk about was during the 1980s, 1982 in particular, we had an unemployment rate at that time actually higher than it is today. At that time it was 15.6%, today it's 15.1%. The U.S. unemployment rate was 9.7 at that time. Today the U.S. unemployment rate is a little higher at 10.2. The point, however, is this, that as things got terrible, and it was terrible, I must tell you, I mean, I was there, it went up, as you can see, we had every reason to believe, and it happened, things got better in a much quicker time period than I fear were going to occur at the moment. So this gives you some perspective in terms of it. So we had a situation where in the 90s we were actually below it. Things started getting a little bit worse, but still, when you look at the early 2000s, we're 7.1 versus 6. Yeah, I know that nobody wants to say 7% is good, but of course, relative to today, and then it started heading up. So we have been on a decline for some period of time. Next chart. This is a busy chart, but I must tell you, in all candor, it is one of the best I have come up with that explains exactly what happened to Michigan. And so I would like you to pay attention, even though it's busy. What we have here is a whole lot of information. The bar shows the total number of sales of light vehicle sales. So that's cars and light trucks. So that's the bar. The line is the percent of of the whole amount that Big Three, what we used to call the Big Three, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler accounted for. All right? So therefore, I ask you, if you can see it, to go to 1999, and if you can't, I'll tell you, you go up 1999, and the bar says it was just under 17 million sales that particular year. So 17 million sales were in the United States. Now, what percentage were the Big Three? That's the little ball, and that's very close to 70%. You can see on the other side, you have 69. So there were 17 million vehicles that were being sold in the U.S. And the Big Three accounted for 70%. And guess where the Big Three were situated? In Michigan. Right? This is good. This is good. I mean, we were doing very well. Now, look what happens. Car sales didn't fall as precipitously, but they started falling. And so, as you can see, in 2007, you go up